All right, chapter 4-3, we are going to be solving equations by adding and subtracting. And the difference between, we've already covered it, but we'll say it again for the at-home students. The difference between what we did last week, which was simplifying or evaluating expressions and solving equations, is that when you evaluate an expression, there's no equal sign. And so you're not solving it, you're just simplifying it and combining like terms as much as you can. Now this week, we're going to be actually solving equations by adding and subtracting. Tomorrow we'll do solving equations by multiplying and dividing. Now we're actually solving for an unknown variable, okay? So like in the example of number 1, our unknown is the z. And then if you'll notice what else you have in the equation, you've got a +6 equals and then a -5. So you've got a couple of constants and then you've got a term, which is the z. And our goal here is to get the z by itself on one side of the equation. Okay. Everybody go ahead and jot down number 1. All right, so the way I always, and if it helps you to do this, I really encourage you to do this, because for some reason, now on these examples, these are kind of the most basic equations. And so we don't have a ton of stuff on the left or on the right, but you want to think of your equal sign as a scale. Okay. And I'm going to draw this once and then I'll erase it. And then I'll actually show you what can be sometimes helpful when you're solving. But you want to think of your equal sign as a scale. And this is a terrible drawing of a scale, but think of a scale that you're balancing, right? And right now it's balanced because this is the way the problem starts. You want to always keep your scale balanced. Okay. So that means that if you do something to one side of the scale or the equation, you have to do the exact same thing to the other side, or else it gets uneven. All right. So now this is what I say, if it helps you do it, because a lot of people forget and they try to do too much on one side of the equation. So if it helps you to very lightly with your pencil, and there's really no way for me to do it lightly because I'm on a whiteboard, but if it helps you to give yourself just like a little squiggly line to remind yourself that that's kind of your wall. And whatever you do on one side of it, you're always going to do on the other. Okay. And your equal sign is always your wall. Wherever the equal sign is in your problem, that's your wall. Okay. And that's what you want to, if you need to, like on this case, we've got a z and a 6 on the left side, and we've got a -5 on the right. Well, the goal is to get the z by itself. We need to move that 6 from the left side over to the right side, or we need to basically cancel it out to 0. Okay. So if we want to make the 6 reduced to a 0, we would subtract 6 from it. But whatever we do to one side of the wall, we have to do to the other. So we also have to subtract 6 from the other side, because that keeps our scale balanced. And when we do that, the 6 minus 6 reduces to 0, which is why we did that. And so all we're left with here is a z. And now on the right side, we've got two constants to combine, right? We've got a -5 minus 6. And this is where adding and subtracting integers, I told you guys at the beginning, this just never goes away. So you really need to get used to the rules of adding and subtracting integers, right? So if you've got -5 or you're negative, right? -5, you go -6 more, you are -11. And so z equals -11. Now notice in the instructions, and you will have to do this on your homework, it says solve each equation, and then it says check your solution. Well, the way we check our solution is we take our equation, and where there was a z, right? And in this case, that's right here. Where there's a z, we're going to plug -11 in and see if it is actually true, if we did it right. So we're going to take, in place of z, we're going to put -11, and then the rest of the equation was +6 equals -5, right? We plugged in our z right here. Whoops. And do it in a different color. We plugged in the value for z. Yes. Do we have to do that? Yeah. It says solve each equation and check your solution. So yes, you have to do it on every one of them. Okay. All right. So now on the Left side, we've got negative 11 plus 6. Well, if you have negative 11, add 6 to it, it's negative 5 equals negative 5. So yes, it checks out. Okay, so that means if you plug it in and you don't get negative 5 equals negative 5, then you've done something wrong in the original equation. Okay. All right. This one's very similar. You'll notice the only difference is instead of like the z plus 6, now we have x minus 8. So you still do it very similar. So again, if it helps to give yourself the little light squiggly line, okay, especially at first, if you struggle with equations, I would highly recommend doing that. Now you'll notice what we have on the left with our x is a negative 8. Well, again, right, we want that to cancel to 0. And if we have negative 8, we know if we add 8 to that, it'll cancel to 0. But whatever we do to one side, we have to do to the other. Negative 8 and positive 8 cancels to 0 or goes away, or we moved it, however you want to word it, leaving only the x on this side. And then negative 3 plus 8. Again, the signs don't match, so you subtract the two numbers and take the sign of the bigger. So 8 minus 3 is 5. And because 8's the bigger number, we take the positive sign of the 8. And then we check it. Well, again, we check it by taking what we now think x equals and plugging it into where there's an x. So that would be 5, and then minus 8 equals negative 3. And then 5 minus 8, signs don't match, so it's 3. And then the negative 8, the 8's bigger, so it'd be negative 3 equals negative 3. So it checks out. Okay. Now on your homework, and I'm looking to see, it's like that on this paper, but it's not like, it's like that on this practice, but it looks like on your homework. I'm just double checking. They don't do it. So notice the way this is written, and don't put this in your notes because I don't like this about this particular paper, and I'm looking at your homework and none of the ones on your homework are like this, which is good. Notice number 11, the way that's written, that gets very confusing. And I told you guys before, try not to have double signs because it's really confusing. This really is just that. Okay. P plus a minus 9 is really P minus 9. So looking at your homework, none of them are written like this. So I don't even want to address it in the notes because it's not like that. Here again, right? Double signs. What's minus a minus? Yeah. So before you try to solve, if you ever come across it like that I don't know, I haven't looked ahead at your quizzes and tests for this. But if you ever come across one on Khan Academy or IXLs, I know you do those for some of your other teachers, or later on a quiz and a test or whatever, rewrite it, simplify it, and get rid of the double signs. Double signs they make it very difficult to figure out what you're doing. Okay. So if it's minus a minus, goes plus. If it's written like this one right here, right, just rewrite it like that. And then it's much easier to do. All right. If you have one where there's a 0 on the other side, it doesn't change anything. I think this will probably be our last one because I don't think we need to do a bazillion examples because every time it's kind of the exact same thing. So on this one, number 19, this is the last one we'll do. The last one you should have in your notes. Got it written down, Noah? 19. Yes. No, I can get one. All right, so same thing, right? You've got your equal sign. That's kind of your wall that you're working. That's your where you really want to keep everything balanced. It's a negative 21, so you're going to add 21. If you do it to one side, you do it to the other. Okay, leaving, right? Negative 21 and positive 21 cancel out, leaving just the u over there. 0 plus 21 is 21. Check your work. So you take where there was the variable and now what you know the variable equals. So you plug that in. So 21 minus 21 equals 0. Does 21 equal 0 or 21 minus 21 equals 0? Yes, it does. Okay. All right, that is it on notes because that's kind of the whole assignment is just doing that. So for those of you at home, go ahead and click load, show all your work, make sure you check all your answers like we did on these few problems, and email me if you have any questions.